Many people know who Tiger Woods is, but this is not about Tiger. This is about a man who, with the help of others, conquered barriers preventing African Americans from playing professional golf, thus paving the way for Tiger Woods and other minorities to play at the highest level, including the Masters. The gentleman I am focusing on is Mr. Lee Elder, one of the greatest golfers of his time. Everyone knows that Jackie Robinson paved the way for African Americans in Major League Baseball. But do you know who Lee Elder is? If you don't, it's okay. I'm about to share his story. Lee was born on July 14, 1934. He was very poor and lived in the slums of Dallas, Texas. He had a tough childhood. His father died in World War II, and his mom died a couple months later due to the stress of losing her husband. Lee was only 9 years old. For the next 3 years, his sister took care of him, and they moved from one terrible area to another. His older brother took him to Tension Park Golf Course to caddy. They caddied for $1 a day. Lee honed his golfing skills as he caddied at Tension. He learned how to play from the people for whom he caddied, and that's how it all started. He had to deal with a lot of racism in the Dallas area. Although he was a great player, there were a lot of great white players. It was a struggle to get a sponsor. Blacks were very segregated in society during this time. Lee decided to move to Los Angeles to live with his aunt. Lee still caddied and gambled. He was a hustler. He pretended that he was an inexperienced golfer so he could win money by making bets. In some bets, he would play cross-handed. The people he gambled with didn't know that he practiced cross-handed, so he actually was quite skilled, and they often lost money to Lee. Lee's game went to a whole new level when he played around with famous boxer Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber. Louis was very involved with the game. He taught his son, Joe Louis Jr., the game of golf. Louis's coach was Ted Rhodes. Ted decided to take Lee under his belt and be his instructor. Ted wasn't an ordinary instructor. He was the first professional African American golfer. Lee was learning from the best. Lee gave it his all because he wanted to get his PGA Tour card. He played in many UGA tournaments, such as the United Golf Association. The UGA was for African Americans. It was like the PGA, but there was not as much money involved. Also, he played in mini tours and saved up enough money to go to Q School. Q School is qualifying school for the PGA. If you do well enough, you get your PGA Tour card. Lee dealt with racism throughout his golfing career. In 1968, Lee played in Memphis, Tennessee. He hit a ball in the fairway, and someone in the crowd ran out and picked up his ball and threw it into the parking lot. Lee has said that was one of the scariest moments of his life. He had to complete the tournament with a police escort. On the positive side, in the same year, Elder came very close to beating Jack Nicklaus in the American Golf Classic. Nicklaus clinched the win on the fifth hole of the sudden death playoff. Eventually, he earned his PGA Tour card. He played in a tournament in South Africa in 1971, and the winner was awarded an invitation to the Masters Golf Tournament. He won the qualifying tournament. However, the Masters officials said that he could not participate in that year's Masters because the winner had to be a player from South Africa. Many suspected that if he had been a white player, the Masters would have allowed him to play. Lee won a tournament in Pensacola, the Monsanto Open. The winner of the tournament gained an invitation to the 1975 Masters. This was no ordinary thing. At that time, blacks were not treated well in the golfing world. African Americans were usually caddies or worked at the clubhouse. Only the very best got the chance to play. To many, having an African American golfer in the Masters was out of the question. Many were furious that Lee got to participate. He received a lot of hate mail and death threats. One letter said, "Watch your step when you get to the Masters. There will be blood." For his own safety, he lived in 2 houses, going from one house to another. Because many were angry, Lee became the most talked about guy in the field. Lee thought it was unfair that he could not practice as much as the other guys at the tournament. So many people followed him and asked him questions. He could not concentrate in his practice rounds. He had to schedule time for interviews, and that was the only time he talked with the public.
The country have honored me, and I've never been honored by the Augusta National Committee.
Now, in '75, when you played Augusta for the first time, first African American to play, I read today that your news conference beforehand was 3 hours long.
Yes.
3 hours.
3 hours. And the reason why is that when I first arrived at Augusta, I went out and tried to play on Monday. And, quite naturally, it was a newsworthy story.
Right.
All of the press wanted individual time, and it was pretty hard for me to do. I went out on the golf course to try to play. They out on the golf course said, Lee, can I ask you this question? Can I do this? Can I do that? And I tried to practice, and I couldn't. So I went to Cliff Roberts, and I told him, I said, well, I feel that it's unfair. I cannot go out and really practice to get ready like everybody else. So I said, can we talk about the possibility of you addressing the press and telling them to let me practice? We have a press conference on Tuesday, which was the first time that a non-winner had been able to hold a press conference there at Augusta, which we did. We started about 4 o'clock after I had practiced that day, and it got finished at 7 that night.
In the Masters, he shot a 74 in the first round and a 78 in the second. Although Lee played his heart out, he could not get the job done. After round 2, he had to pack his bags and go back home because he got cut. Although Lee was probably disappointed, he could still keep his head up. He was the first African American to play in the Masters. Lee had the right to participate in the Masters. He thought it was his responsibility to pave the way for African Americans in golf. He said, "All in all, I really enjoyed it, even though it was tough. I was fortunate to be the person to kick down the last door of enforced segregation." This man made a big impact on the game. After Lee came home from the Masters, the golfing world changed. Blacks were more involved with the game. In 1979, Calvin Peete won the Greater Milwaukee Open. In 1990, Ron Townsend became the first African American to be a member of Augusta. In 1997, Woods became the first African American to win the Masters. Lee Alder was watching, and upon seeing that Tiger might win, he rushed to Augusta to be there for the historic moment. So it was not just Lee that paved the way to where we are today. The people who I mentioned prior are just a few who helped change the game. Because of Lee and the professional African Americans on the tour today and in the past, many young African Americans participate in the game of golf and feel that they have just as much right to go to the Masters as anyone else. Did Lee help change the game? I think he did, do you? He paved the way for African Americans to play in the Masters. More than that, he sets a great example as a person. He came from a rough childhood and worked hard to get where he is today. He proved that even in the face of racism and terrible odds, you can achieve great things. I hope now you realize what this man did for the game of golf.